A healthy morning to one and all. Welcome once again to the second session of Impact Lecture Series conducted by Minister of Education's Innovation Cell and Institution of Innovation Council together with Birla Global University. Seeking guidance and support from Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. P.P. Mathur, sir, Registrar Dr. B.K. Das, sir, Revered Deans and esteemed faculty colleagues and dear pupils, and all the active mindsets who have the heart beating out for the startup ecosystem. There's a slogan in Sanskrit that states, Padahi Sarvatra Gunaya Nidhyate, which means good work and good deed find their footprints all throughout the globe. And on that note, I have the privilege and extreme happiness to welcome Mr. Prashant Singh, the Chief Executive Officer of BCKIC Bhubaneswar. Mr. Prashant Singh is not only an expert to guide the startup mindsets, but at the same time provide them with pre-incubation and incubation setups. Sir, we'll have the privilege of hearing from you what it really takes for a budding entrepreneur to make it work in real life conditions. Thank you, everyone.
Very good morning, everyone. Let me first confess that, okay, I can speak to you, but I cannot hear you all. So somehow it is going, there are some technical issues. Because of that, okay, whatever I want to communicate, I can communicate. There are going to be questions from your end or some clarity needed here and there. I will request to please reach out to administrator or talk to Dr. Swagat, and he can post your questions in the chat box or any clarity needed in the chat box. And later on, I can take it, or in the process also, I can take it. So to start with, first and foremost, very much thanks to Birla Global. I have just opened my chat box, so sometime I'm looking over there. So don't say I'm looking somewhere else. I'm just looking at the chat box. So first and foremost, I am thankful to Birla Global University, and it's very, very important to have this impact lecture series to sensitize and to update our students and even our faculty members about the startup ecosystem and how best we can utilize the available opportunities to transform our ideas into life. When we are talking about startup ecosystem, the title of the talk, let me share my screen. Is my screen visible? Dr. Swagat, there is going to be another challenge. When I'm going to share my screen, I will not be able to see any of the chat because I will be in PowerPoint mode. Just a request that, okay, you can drop me on WhatsApp if there is any issue. I will be on my WhatsApp. But as soon as I shared my screen, I realized that it is not possible that to look at the messages. So coming back to our topic of the today. I will be focusing on startup ecosystem, innovations, and entrepreneurship. When we talk about all these three topics, all three topics are very vast. So definitely it is not possible to cover everything in one go. So some of the topics in the whole ecosystem, I will be talking at macro level and others in the micro and more granular level. When I'm talking about those micro or more granular levels, I am going to talking about more of those topics which are important for students and faculty members and academic institutions. And when we are talking about something on a very macro level, we are going to go through whole business process, how to develop a startup and how to make it successful. So it is end-to-end content, which will be there in a macro level. When we talk about startup ecosystem, innovation and entrepreneurship, especially entrepreneurship, there can be multiple type of entrepreneurship. We are going to talk about knowledge-based entrepreneurship, innovation-based entrepreneurship. Similarly, startup ecosystem, there can be societal startup, there can be artisan startup, there can be e-marketplaces, there can be multiple type of startups, but yes, we will be focusing more on knowledge and innovation-based startups. That itself is going to be a huge topic, and if we start covering everything, there are 2 days, 3 days, 6 days workshop to cover everything. So we will focus on some of the important points only, which are going to be very, very pertinent in academic environment. When we talk about innovation, startups, let me give an example. We are going to identify some problem statement and find a solution which is going to be beneficial, which can be converted into a revenue model in future, or which can be of help to the societal benefit. It may not be revenue, it can be a balanced approach, but definitely some sort of novelty we are going to get into the whole context, which is going to be a driving point for my startup ecosystem. What sort of problem statement? Just to start with, we all know that solar is a very, very important power source right now, and many of our much quantity of our power needs are getting met by solar energy. So that's an opportunity. That's not a problem statement, and everybody knows. And we are trying to augment our renewable energy resources, especially with the solar energy and somewhere in wind energy and other type of green energies. But do we have some challenges in the whole process? Definitely, being solar, it is going to work from sunrise to sunset. It is not going to work in the evenings, late evenings or nights. So that is one concern. So it is not a constant source of electricity. That is problem number one. But when it is producing high amount of energy, let's say 50 megawatt or 100 megawatt or 500 megawatt power plant, and you are going to put it on the grid. So whatever infrastructure you are creating, that infrastructure is going to be robust. It is going to be sufficient to take that much amount of electricity, put it on the grid. So the other challenge is that, okay, we have invested equivalent amount of resources in terms of monetary resources as well as components for transferring equivalent amount of electricity to the grid. Had it been a coal power plant or geothermal or a hydropower plant, they might be giving me revenue 24 hours a day. So that means my cost of establishing the solar power plant ancillary infrastructure is not giving the same amount of return. Though the advantage is definitely solar is free, so it is getting compensated. But somehow, if we can work on a methodology for which this solar power plant can work for another hour or 2 hours during the sunset or just after the sunset, is it possible? Technically not, because solar is not there. Practically, yes, we are ingenious, and we can work out of solutions when we are having higher solar energies, higher solar irradiation in the day. Definitely, we cannot convert into electricity because electricity requirements are defined, but we can convert into other source of energy. That solar energy is converted in some sort of potential energy. Let's say you with the gravitational force, you can put some of the weight at the 200-meter height during the daytime, and when the sun is set, you get the weight down, and that weight downing of the weight, lowering of the weight can create some energy, electricity, and you can power the plant for another 1 hour and utilize the resources. And this is, I'm not talking in a sense that it is entirely novel concept. These are the things which is happening. So the concept is like you have to think out of the box when you have to be disruptive, whenever we are looking at the problem statement. And that is going to be much more impactful. That doesn't mean that you cannot have an incremental solution. You can always have an incremental solution. You can identify a problem and try to solve a niche segment area based on the idea, based on the expertise one has. So with that, I will be moving ahead with the talk. I come from Bhubaneswar City Knowledge Innovation Cluster. This cluster is set up by Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India. There are 6 clusters set up across the country, one in Delhi, Hyderabad, Bhubaneswar, Pune, Jodhpur, and Bangalore. The way we work is like we work in an inclusive basis. We work with different institutions and create a shared ecosystem where people can freely exchange their ideas, freely exchange their resources in a MOU based or in a shared ecosystem where people are going to share in reverse with each other. With that, we create an environment so that the institutional infrastructures becomes a regional solution providers. There can be multiple type of problems in the region, and one can work collectively to provide some solutions of those problems and also we work on some of the projects of national and global competitiveness. Birla Global University is very, very important, and they are very much part of the cluster network. So this is the first part when we say academic institutions, but academic institutions are like, okay, we are developing an idea, we are creating an innovation, but where to test it? So you need industries as well. Similarly, industries are having different type of problems, but they might not have an R&D center, or they don't have an R&D center which is going to cater all of their problems. In that case, they have to come back to academia, and then there are a startup ecosystem who can fulfill the need of the both, as well as there are going to be policymakers. Their requirements may be different. They are not for profit, but it is more towards the benefit of the larger society. So clusters are going to work jointly with academic institutions, industries, government, and startups to identify a problem and provide a holistic solution where solution is not limited to, let's say, development of the product, but also towards the deployment of the product. Or for that matter, if the product is already there, whether it can be explored for the deployment. So this is the shared ecosystem the cluster is talking about, and I am representing one such clusters from India, Bhubaneswar City Knowledge Innovation Cluster. Coming back to the main topic, you have an idea, and you have to convert into a reality. And this is easy to talk, but there are multiple steps one has to follow. And the whole session today will be focusing on that area only. Some may be at macro level, some of the content may be at the granular level. So when we are talking about startup development phase, so definitely I got a good idea. Let's say I gave an idea about creating some other sort of energy which can be converted into electricity during the time when sun is set. Definitely there can be many such ideas. That ideas are needed to be worked upon and developed into a prototype and then into a product. Then they are needed to come into the market, and in the market also, before going to the market, you have to do the validation and testing. So when a startup is maturing from idea to growth, there are going to be multiple steps. There may be pre-startup, startup, and growth steps. And once you go to the market, there can be multiple challenges. Multiple challenges in a sense that, okay, you work on the feasibility of the idea, you work on the production cost and profitability, because I have an idea. Let's say it's a very simple example. Let's say I'm having a headache and I'm going to have a couple of brand names which are available in the market. And that pill is going to cost me 1 rupee and relieve my headache in, let's say, 5 minutes. You have invented another pill, or not invented or discovered or tested another pill, which probably can relieve your headache in 1 minute against the 5 minutes. But the cost of that pill production is going to be 10,000 rupees or 1,000 rupees. Definitely it's non-starter. So you had a very good idea. You have to work out as per the market realistic expectation, or you have to uh, feature your product into a very niche market. That doesn't mean that, okay, people are not there who can not buy a very costly medicine for headache. They are working day and night and earning very well. And for them, time is very, very important. And they may buy something which is some slightly costly as well. But then your market becomes very different. Why we are talking about market is like, unless we have some understanding and insight of the market, my idea, my innovation may be very great, may be solving a problem, but it may not provide the solution in real life environment. So this is a translating innovation flow sheet. What is important is like there are going to be multiple activities. What is the price discovery? What is the customer you are going to target? What is the competition available there? What is the go-to-market strategy? And the university, Birla Global University, is very, very advanced when it comes to the marketing department or MBA department. So definitely these things will be covered, or many of you might be going to study all these things. But as an innovator, you may not have the knowledge of everything because you are a researcher, you are a scientist, but you should have some insight on these things while working on the product which you are trying to take forward to the market, or at least the upper 3-4 points when you are working on the product. Rest are supply chain and other things. When actual product come into the picture, you can look into it. Supply chain is very, very important in some cases, but not in all cases. Let's say everybody else is transporting something at room temperature, and your supply chain or your product requires something to be transported at 4 degrees Celsius. That can make an impact. But those are rare cases. In general, whatever we are working on, we know about the competition, how the product works. So that can be part for the later. But these 3 points, business strategy, at least you should have some idea on the price, some idea on the customer segmentation, competition information, whenever you are working on your product innovation or startup, so that actually when you go to the market, you are ready with the right solution. If I have worked on something which is very different than the market, I have worked on it, I have invested 3-4 years, when I go to the market and I realize it is not going to work, at the end, I'm going back to the drawing board. I'm going to lose time, effort, resources, money invested in last 3 years. So be very careful. Another point is registration. Some of the products are going to be going to need regulatory clearances. Be very careful whether your product is requiring regulatory clearances or not. For example, I mean, a very simple one is like, if you are making nowadays any device, be it medical device or non-medical device, you need a BIS registration. But if you are going for a medical device, you need many more registrations, certificates when we are going to CDSCO. So be very clear on what you are needed to do after 2 years when you are working on your innovation. So the big picture I was talking about, segment, target, position, these all are the market. The fact is that we are working on innovation space, which is much, much before. And these knowledge are going to be very, very important to convert my idea to a mature product. And keep, kill, and reboot is more towards the marketing when the end of the life cycle is coming into the picture. So we generated idea, validated idea, made a plan, designed, developed, launched the product, established in the market, maintain saturation, and kill the product if the relevance of the product is no more in the market. But since we all are academician, mostly we will be working in this innovation space, and we will be focusing towards the innovation space when we are going at the presentation. So idea to product, it can be services as well. Now, when we are talking about being in an academic space, we do require some sort of basic support to convert our idea into a reality. Considering the same, National Innovation and Startup Policy was implemented in 2019. This is freely available. It is a national policy, and there are multiple points. It's very difficult to go through all the points, but I will highlight some of the policy points which are going to support the ecosystem created available in the academic institutions. So one is creating innovation fund. Whenever an institution is there, higher education institution is there, they can create a one innovation fund by pooling 1% of their total budget, and they should be getting in return. So whatever money is distributed through this innovation fund in some startup, it should be in some sort of equity, so that when the startup is successful, the money comes back. Money comes back is not for the earning. Money comes back because you have to support more and more innovation in the future, and you have to rotate the resources to support, let's say, 2022 batches student, 2025 batches student, or 2028 batches student. So that is one sort of thought process which is the part of the policy. Other thing is focused on the students as well as faculty members. They can take a 1 year break and try out their product in. They can take a 1 year break, a 1 semester break, and try out your innovation in the market, in the development. So that is also allowed now. Credit for working on innovative prototypes. I will come to that. And then institute is having a lot of resources in terms of instrumentation. And if some startup is registered at their incubation center, they should be providing these resources to the startups to try out different experiments free of charge, because your institute is anyways getting an equity over there. Coming specifically, what is there for the students? So students can take there are multiple points as I told, and one can go and have a detailed look on the startup policy, National Innovation Startup Policy. But some of the important points are, when students are opening a startup, they can use even the hostel address, because this looks like very trivial, but this is very, very important when you are registering a company and a student may be in hostel. So they can use that hostel address as well for the registration of the startup. As I told, they can take a semester break, year break. They can, in discussion with or advert the institutional policy, they can be allowed slightly lower attendance for taking up the exams if they are working on startups. They can earn credit. When we are talking about credit, generally it is summer training, dissertation, field education programs. If you're working on startup, that can be also converted into a credit. So these are some of the important points with which policy is supporting the students to come into the startup and innovation ecosystem. For the faculties as well, there are multiple incentives. If they have developed a technology in the lab, they can open a startup and try to commercialize the technology. Now it depends, like if it is funded by institutional resources, definitely there will be a share for the institution into that. At the same time, if it is a non-institutional resource and less than 20% of the time is given by faculty on his startup, then institutional input can also be avoided. Faculty can also take a year of break. It can be an unpaid leave, it can be a paid leave, casual leave, sabbatical, to work on their startups. You can take 100% of the share of a startup if you are only contributing less than 20% of your working hour towards the startup. But yes, if you are working more than 20% of your time towards the startup, then definitely 100% shares cannot be taken. If the faculty is drawing salary, so if you are not on sabbatical and if you're drawing salary, then definitely institution role, it comes into the picture, and they can get a stake in the startup that is capped to 9.5%, not less than that. But yes, when we are working and we are a faculty member, we are responsible to the institutions, and we have to follow some of the guidelines, which is very, very important. We are already an employee of an organization, so we cannot take another employment in the startup. We can be founder, director, co-founder, vice president, but yes, we cannot be CEO or any executive post. So that is needed to be taken care of whenever a faculty is thinking to open a startup. Faculty must clearly separate their normal research and startup work. It should not be intermixed uh, irrationally. If there is a rational, maybe, but not irrationally. Rational, I will come to the next slide. But irrationally, it should not be mixed up. Definitely, if it is shared by some other faculty members, then it is even bigger no, because then we are going to a conflict zone. We should not involve laboratory staff, which is the part of the institution for the worker startup. Similarly, startup staff should not be used for the standard laboratory research functions. So these are the policies for the faculty members and for the students, but there should be an ecosystem to support them. And with that, the new startup policy also says that university or institute of higher education, maybe institutes of eminence, IITs, research institutions, they should create an incubator. And when they say create an incubator, they also specify make it a Section 8 company. When you make it a Section 8 company, you do get some advantages to frame a slightly different rule, which are more supportive and faster to implement in comparison to traditional rules and regulations which we follow in our institutions. Our institutions have strict rules and regulations to stop any sort of wrongdoing. And because of that, it becomes sometimes very slow. But when we are talking about startup, we are going to be fast. We are going to expedite the processes. So some of the rules and regulations can be quickly implemented when there is a special purpose vehicle in form of an incubator. If you are not opening an incubator, institute is not opening an incubator, they can tie up with the nearby institution for the incubation program. The other institute might have an incubator. If institute has developed some of the IPRs, they can license those IPRs to the startup companies in their incubator. And the point I was talking about earlier that, okay, we should not mix the work here and there if I'm faculty member. But yes, there is an opportunity if there is a startup and other faculty members are ready to transfer, an institute is ready to transfer the copyright or IPR or some sort of licensing to this faculty, the other faculty member startup, that is doable. And the facility, when we are talking about incubation, we are talking about urgency, expediency. It should be open 24/7. So policy level, new startup policy talks about all three important things. All three important components, address the concern of all three important components, be it students, be it faculty members, or be it providing a ecosystem within the host institution, which is favorable towards innovation and startup creation. Now coming to the actual part, definitely we talked about a problem statement, solutions. We have to build a team to deliver the product I'm looking for. I will be coming, next few slides will be talking about funding. So you provided a policy framework to help a student. One provided the policy framework for helping the faculty member, helping the institution to graduate the incubators. The next part is funding. Yes, funding is dependent on all these things. Whether you have a clear problem statement or not, you have a workable solution or not, where you have a team or not. Team in a sense that, okay, if I have a diverse team, I am a researcher and my team member is, let's say, an MBA student who can do the market survey, or a finance person who can look into the revenue potential, or can work on the balance sheet of the company. This type of team are going to be credited more in comparison to like a single person team. After that, we work on the funding part. Funding I will take in detail because that is one of the micro component which one of the component which is needed to be discussed at the granular level. You find out your mentors, because for each thing you may not be the best person and you may not hire everyone. So everyone for every component. So you have to reach out to the mentor. Then you have to develop the technology from TRL 1 to TRL 9. That is another topic altogether. Once you are ready with a mature product, you have to do a partnership. It can be industry, it can be stakeholders, or if you're good enough, enterprising enough, you yourself can take it, your product into the market. Nothing like it. To grow it, you need additional money, Series A, BC funding. For that, you have to reach out to investors. And then finally, you have a scaled up product launch. So we need all of the above to reach to the market. But the funding component is very, very important. And we will discuss about what are the opportunities available to academic researchers for the funding of their concept or idea. When we are talking about funding, as we talk about maturation from idea to production, definitely the fund requirement differs. And for each stage there is a funding. So ideation stage also there are funding. Proof of concept establishment also there is a funding. If you want to convert into a prototype, there is a funding, and then testing scale up and taking it to the market, there is funding. I will talk about some of the funding agencies and the policies in next slides. Uh, Definitely, I hear that some of the people, some of the participants are also outside of Odisha who are joined online. But most of us are from Odisha. So let's start with the startup funding scenario by the government of Odisha under the Startup Odisha campaign, MSME department. It's a very, very dynamic department, and they are strongly supporting the startup ecosystem in the state. And that does not only include like a OHub type of space, but also the policies and funding support. So if you have a product which you want to develop, validate, and want to take into the market, you can be supported up to 15 lakh rupees. And if you are a girl or woman, and either you are coming from social categories such as SC, ST, or physically handicapped, then you can be given a grant in aid of up to 16 lakh rupees. There are some kind of criteria, as said over here. SEBI registered category 1 and 2 funds should be there, or at least 25 lakh rupees funding you would have received until now, or you would have already received a grant funding from central government or any state government. That means you have already been screened and provided some assistance. And you should be having a revenue of 25 lakh rupees for last 6 months. It's not that all of them are needed to be satisfied. Even one or two is satisfied, that is more than enough. There is also a clause that, okay, if you have got a patent, that means on that idea for which you are looking for funding, that also can be reviewed by the department, and a fund can be sanctioned in the tune of 15 lakh rupees. But sometimes you might not have a project which can be completed in 15 lakh. Many of the projects can be easily completed in 15 lakh, but some of the projects cannot be completed. For that, Government of Odisha also has need-based assistance, where you give the funding requirement and proper rationale for those requirements. Then government may consider go through an expert, route your project through an expert committee, and may consider to provide additional funding as well. This is also around the year application window. So these two are more towards the funding of the development of the product or marketing of the product or go-to-market strategy. Government of Odisha also have a monthly allowances in terms of fellowships. So they do pay 20,000 rupees per month to the eligible students or eligible starters for their HR needs. And in case of women and special category or social categories mentioned over here, they pay up to 22,000 rupees per month. So this is another opportunity one can explore, provided they are coming into these three categories provided on the right side. So these are the Government of Odisha funding schemes which we all can utilize, provided we are able to address some of these points like revenue or patent or having a national grant. So we can utilize those opportunities to seek additional fund from Government of Odisha to support our innovation and go-to-market strategy. Moving ahead, there are multiple programs from different line ministries of Government of India. Let's say if we are working on some sort of social entrepreneurship where we are going to support the society in large, it may be some sort of nutraceutical formulation, it can be some sort of product line which are going to take advantage of pharmacology which is coming from the forest area and coming with some innovative product for the social benefit. Definitely, these type of projects can be supported by a BIRAC scheme. BIRAC is a special purpose vehicle by Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. There you can get a fellowship of up to 50,000 rupees per month and 5 lakh rupees a kickstart grant. There is a Sitare scheme. This scheme is specifically for MSc and PhD students. Where you can work out a plan and submit it to the government. It is open once in a year, and if BIRAC find your program very suitable, they can fund it. You can get 15 lakh rupees award from the government to work with any challenge which you have identified your in MSc or PhD and try to convert into a product. So sometimes I'm working on a research problem which is having a solution which is deployable. In that case, and if it is related to biology, I can write to BIRAC to support it so that my research can also lead to some sort of deployable solutions. There is Nidhi Prayas. Nidhi is National Initiative for Developing and Harnessing Innovations. It is a DST, Department of Science and Technology program. Nidhi Prayas is somewhere when you are trying to make a prototype, they will pay up to 10 lakh rupees, which you can use for prototyping, converting a proof of concept to the prototype. This is 18-month program and the call is open once in a year. Definitely one can utilize this opportunity as well towards the prototype creation. So that means you have already established the proof of concept, then you are going to create the prototype. Then entrepreneurship in entrepreneurs in residence. This is for the graduate students who are in final year. So BTech final year student, MBBS final year students, BSc final year students, they can utilize this grant. So in the final year of their education, it is thought that, okay, next year, probably he may become an entrepreneur. He or she may become an entrepreneur and the person is needed to be supported. Here the grant amount is, fellowship amount is 30,000 rupees per month, and it is going to be paid for whole 12 months or the date when your examination is over. So 30,000 rupees per month grant is also available in Nidhi EIR program. MIT, Ministry of Electronics, IT, also has a grant called TIDE. This is Technology Incubation and Development of Entrepreneurs program. Any graduated individuals, you are not needed to be a student. If you have graduated, you can apply for this grant. Women entrepreneurs are highly encouraged. TIDE grant money is in the tune of 7 lakh rupees. But if it is, that is for the, let's say, capital capex part. But if it is only needed to be for entrepreneurship in residence, then it is up to 4 lakh rupees. So if you are an MSc, you can take a fellowship up to 4 lakh rupees for 2 years because you have already graduated and you are doing an entrepreneurship. You are being an entrepreneur in residence, part of the entrepreneur in residence program. Atal Innovation Mission also provide opportunities in form of Aeration and IC. Here, the focus is more towards those type of innovation which are requirement of different line ministries of Government of India. Let's say Jal Jeevan Mission. Jal Jeevan Mission is focused on providing water, safe water to each of the citizen in India, potable water to each of the citizen of India. And when we are talking about potable water, it is needed to be tested. So you are developing a device, let's say, which can monitor the water quality in remote setting. That type of projects can be supported through AIM or ANIC mission because your product is now meeting more towards the national requirement. That doesn't mean you cannot go towards the market. You can sell your product independently. You can sell your product at multiple other channel sources, but still you can take a grant from AIM, Arise, and ANIC, and the grant amount can be up to the amount of 15 lakh rupees. These are milestone-based grants. So, okay, you convert, you complete milestone one with the initial 30% grant, ask for the second tranche, and then the final tranche. The program should be for 9 to 12 months. Then there is seed fund scheme. Seed fund scheme is slightly different. Let's say I have made a startup, I have created my startup, and I need some seed money. Seed money in a sense that, okay, to start the program or innovation or the research or the prototype, whatever I am looking at. These are not granted aid. This, against this seed money, the funder will take some of the equity from your organization, whatever startup you have opened up. So these are the seed programs, and it can be availed in the healthcare, social impact relevant startups, biotechnology, food processing relevant startup, agriculture startup, industrial biotech, waste management and sanitation, clean energy and environment. So if any of your idea fall under any of these category, you are eligible to apply for this particular seed fund. But yes, this funding support is definitely less on the grant part, more on the debt and convertible debenture part, which either you have to refund or you have to give an equity of some amount for availing the seed funding. Similarly, BIRAC also has another grant that is called Biotechnology Ignition Grant. This is for proof of principle. The grant amount is up to 50 lakh rupees, more towards the area related to biotechnology, maybe healthcare, medtech, industrial biotechnology, drug, vaccine, agriculture. So these are the areas. The grant is open twice a year. This is an 18-month program where you have to complete your project, submit to the data after the completion of the grant, and you will be paid 50 lakh rupees in advance to complete your work, whatever you have proposed. So this is limited to biotech people. So the point is not only at policy level, but government is also working extensively at the funding support level so that students and faculty members can work on their idea and convert them toward the reality. Next few slides, I will devote more on the BCKIC. There are different type of grants or opportunity, what our cluster also provides over a period of time. Okay. So this is another grant. This is focused on the defense requirement. Defense ministry, you might be hearing that, okay, Make in India is going to be an important concept in defense because our imports are very high. We are looking for indigenization. So here the grant amount up to 1.5 crore rupees is given by IDEX, that is Innovation in Defense Excellence, to multiple problem statements. These problem statements are other way around, that rather than I am defining a problem statement, all the services, Navy, Army, Air Force, identify their problem statement, they publish it, and anybody can go through it. And if you find that your innovation is going to support that particular problem statement, you can apply for this grant. So this is another area where one can explore the efficacy of their innovation. For us, we work on multitude of programs at our level as well. We are talking about Aeration. Aeration was supported by US Embassy, and we identified 3 concepts which are good enough and which are looking to solve the problem of air pollution. The problem is less over here, but air pollution is a big problem, and you can understand people who are coming from Delhi, Noida, Lucknow, and all those areas. It is such a big problem over there. So that was one area we worked upon, and the concept was not about Bhubaneswar in a sense that, okay, there is an air pollution problem in Bhubaneswar, but it's more like being ready with solutions so that first and foremost problem should not come. But if the problem comes, definitely we should be having some support system to resolve those problems. Sometimes the challenges and solutions or the program which is provided by different funding agency or different support agency is not only about the fund. Sometimes they also provide ancillary opportunities. Like in this case, we have offered all three best solutions which we have received, that their product will be tested in different laboratories to ascertain that yes, it is meeting the minimum requirement goals, it is clearing the pollutions, and different state pollution control board will also certify in case your solution is actually meeting the ISO standards. So these additional points are also very, very important when we are looking for some of the funding opportunity or some of the programs which is running to support the startup innovation ecosystem. Quest is another program where our focus is on innovation in infectious diseases to reduce the burden of IDs in the country, mostly in remote setting. Remote setting is very, very important because many of the infectious diseases are there in the rural areas rather than, I will say, urban areas. We are working with the state government of Odisha on Odisha Pitching Up Entrepreneurship Camp. It is more towards the boot camp. We reached out to multiple universities, asked their ideas and scientific ideas. So sometimes we are not working on business ideas, but scientific ideas which can be converted into business. And we reached out to 20 university and institute of higher education in the state. And right now we are in the next phase of identifying some of the promising one, and they can be monitored and they can be mentored for maturing their idea towards some sort of prototype. I will not say a product, but definitely towards prototype. Some of the startups we are supporting in a sense that when we are talking about startups, there are incubators, as I told. So when you have an idea, you have to establish a proof of concept, you have to establish a prototype, then you have to mature an idea towards a product that is at least minimum viable product which can go into the market, and then you try it out into the market and come back and modify your product if there is a requirement as per the need of the market. So we considering the fact that incubators are the right place for ideation to prototyping, we are not involved over there. But yes, if you have reached to a level where you are into pre-market level, we will be definitely supporting you to make proper connection, right network, forward and backward linkages, so that your idea can be, your prototype can actually reach to the market. I will give two examples. Rice husk is readily available. Unfortunately, it is getting burned. It is getting burned, so it is a pollution. That pollution is very, very high when you hear about Punjab. But if we can convert it into a value, why people burn it? Because it is not giving them any revenue. It is a waste. But if we can convert it to a value-added product, definitely the burning will be lower in comparison to when it was having value. So one of the startup over here in Odisha itself started working on these rice husks. They prepared biogenic silica, which is an important product, has a market value. They prepared a cellulose powder, which is also an important. So what happened that whatever you waste you were having, you converted into your product. Now you can sell it. When you can sell it, the chances of wastage are low. Chances of burning is low. And these type of startups are having both commercial as well as environmental impact. And definitely we will support them. Another is Berry Flow. Berry Flow Lab is working on floating aquaculture, floating horticulture as well as aquaculture. Most of the lakes are getting dead. And when they are getting dead, the problem is that when we are talking about cities, there are a lot of filth which is getting generated. So what this startup did was created an aeration system. I don't think I have kept that photo over here. And that aeration system can decrease the biological oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand in the lake. It is based on IoT, and this IoT are fixed with sensors, so it can float all around. It can identify the need at different places, at different depth, and accordingly it can change the aeration condition in the lake or pond wherever we are looking at. So this was the science part of it, and we could understand, we can easily relate with it. They went ahead with the second part as well, that is the commercialization part. And when we are talking about commercialization part, earlier I talked about their scientific value, environmental value. There are a lot of commercial value which is needed to be put into your argument when you are looking for probably some sort of funding or probably some sort of business association, or when you are establishing your market linkages. So what else? Not only it is in decreasing BOD and COD, there are other instruments as well in the market which are doing it, but because they are intelligent devices, IoT based devices, they are using 50% less power. So that's a direct advantage. The capex of this device is lower by 20% with whatever available in the market. So that is another point. Your productivity increases by 7 to 10% because you are not monitoring it, you are not doing it. It is like integrated system which take care of itself day and night. So even in night, if there is a need, it can start by power up by itself and then power down by itself. And carbon footprint is definitely reduced when we are talking about such type of devices. The reason is not that, okay, it is not using electricity and that electricity is not coming from the coal power. The reason of carbon footprint reduction, which is identified, is that, okay, when the lake is dead, it produces much more carbon dioxide. All the, rather than, so because all the, you can say alga, now they are dying. When they are dying, they are not taking out carbon dioxide, they are not fixing carbon dioxide, they are actually releasing carbon dioxide. Once we have improved the health of the ecosystem, health of the pond, they are again rejuvenated and they can start filtering the, absorbing the carbon dioxide, fixing the carbon dioxide. Why it is important that, okay, nowadays it is a buzzword, but more than that, I will say, many of them will say it is a buzzword, but more than that, I will say it is the need of the hour that whatever you are doing, you have to put a sustainability map. I am doing something which is very, very energy intensive. People may not like it. I am doing something which is very, very water intensive, water requirement intensive. People may not like it because resources are limited, resources are meager. We have to be sustainable in our planning. So whenever you are planning a startup or whenever you are working on an idea to reality, try to minimize plastic uses, try to make it more robust, try not to make something to be used every 6 months. Make it like, okay, it can be once purchased, it can be used for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, so that plastic wastages are not there. So these are the important points when you should consider when you are doing a prototype. So with that, I covered most of the topic which I thought that should be relevant to this group. We talked about idea to enterprise at a macro level, what is the startup development phases and market fit analysis, because that is very, very important when you go, so that you can go back to your idea and convert into a prototype or a pre-market product. Otherwise, you will be delayed by 3 years or 2 years or maybe 5 years. Then we discuss about national innovation startup policies. We discuss about the policy relevance for the students, faculties, establishment of incubation centers, and how those incubation centers are going to be much more flexible for providing slightly free hand. I will not say that, okay, it is giving a complete free hand because checks and balances are needed to be there, but yes, slightly free hand to the researcher to quickly try out their ideas towards a product or process. Then there are various grant of Government of India and Government of Odisha, which we discuss about, and some of the initiatives our cluster has taken up in form of Quest, in form of boot camp, in form of Aerothon, or supporting startups, which I discussed. And with that, I end my session and open to questions and answers. Just a second. I think I have to stop sharing my screen. Yes. So first and foremost, Dr. Swagat, was it audible properly? Because I did not get any message on WhatsApp. Okay, okay. I got it right now. Okay.
Are you audible now? Not yet.
So does startup ecosystem, I have received two questions. Does startup ecosystem lack of systematic mentoring? Good question. Yes. When we say lack, uh, startup ecosystem is a new concept in our country. And when we are talking about startup ecosystem, we are talking about a structured startup ecosystem. There are people, there are businesses, there are entrepreneurship which is happening, but in innovation space, it was not there. Let me give a simple example. When we are talking about US, uh, every student, even in class 6, 7th, 8th, the fact is that apart from education, he is probably also doing carpentering, plumbing, or some other things. So he's exposed to additional attributes, additional skill sets. We are not exposed. So that is our first hurdle when we are coming to the design thinking. And we start looking for mentors. The other thing is like in the beginning itself, they start earning. Many of the graduate students are working in the market as well as studying. Here we are mostly studying, and once we finish our study, we go to the market to get some market knowledge. So these are the facts. Unfortunately, this has happened not only to the students, but let's say the people on the other side. If I'm talking about myself, I have also not worked in that. So I also have to learn. So classically, yes, there has been a lack of the startup ecosystem mentoring, but I will say that is something which was there 10, 15 years back. In the last 10, 15 years, a lot of efforts has been taken. Definitely not everything can be changed in a year or two or three, but efforts are being taken. There are a number of entrepreneurship workshops, conferences, courses, which one can take it and understand the relevance of different components required for a startup ecosystem, be it design thinking, be it go-to-market strategy, be it forward linkages, one can try to understand. The second is like identify a mentor. Definitely the question relies on the mentoring is less, but still there are mentors available and they will be able to support you. Third thing is like sometimes we say that, okay, one out of the 100 startups are successful. That means failure rate is very high. Maybe, but the reason is not exactly that, okay, failure rate is very high. We have to develop more due diligence processes so that the startup can mature better. So definitely the infrastructure is improving, the ecosystem is improving, and things are getting better. But yes, it is not 100% until now. And we all have to work together. I mean, you have to reach out to the mentor. Mentor will not reach out to you. What are the best areas to work on ideas? Okay, so best idea is first and foremost, it should be your strength area. You cannot work on anything which is not part of your strength area. But as a part of team, let's say if you are a business manager, then you can work with different segments. You can work with IT, you can work with healthcare segment, you can work with agriculture segment. Identify a good partner over there and work with them. Again, some of the important fields, if I say, we are talking about electric vehicles, we are talking about carbon neutrality, we are talking about industry 4, we are talking about AI ML nowadays. All these ideas, all these areas are good one and upcoming one. But rest assured that areas like health, agriculture, they are important today, they will always be there. So these were the two questions with me, and I hope the answers are in line.
Sure, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Sri Prashant Singh sir, for this session. That brings up back to the very start of it, the identification of the problem statement. Um, I'll be sharing two questions that our students have asked. One is how to think of scaling up of an idea which would encourage more investment. All right, that means how to actually go ahead with your business, then limiting it to a startup. And the second question is, when you want any participation, especially from the government side, does it ask for any stake of equity, or are there just the stocks or the dividends of it? So because of the technical glitch for which our honorable expert is unable to hear us out, what we can do is we'll be emailing him these two questions. Actually, he's just waiting. So if you can give me some time, I'll just type it out. Okay.
So, are you able to hear us?
So government directly does not take equity, but there are uh, so if there is a seed fund is towards the equity. So government provides some funding to the incubators so that incubators can invest in some of the ideas which are coming to them. So it's an indirect government funding, but it is the government money. Government is not taking an equity, but incubators are taking equity. But yes, for some of the grants, let's say government is giving you 2 crore, 3 crore, 5 crore rupees grant for a scale up, then they can work on profit sharing model or equity model or debenture model or reversal of debenture model. But most of these are at the next stage when you are maturing towards the initial conceptualization, prototyping, proof of concept principle. These are grant in aid. These are not the equity-based investment. Risk of business scaling. Risk is always there. And when you are innovative, then the risk is going to be higher. So that's why I told that, okay, whenever you are working on a business idea or any process or any innovation, do check out of the market, whether market is ready for that, whether your solutions are going to be viable in the market, whether there is a clear differentiator of product in the market. Otherwise, is it going to be one of the many product which is already available? If it is one of the many product which is already available, then you are doing standard business. Standard business requires standard practices, cost cutting wherever you can cut the cost and try to provide something at a cheaper price, and you are doing your business. So risk will always be there, but why not talking about the gains? This question comes and I say that, okay, we talk about risk, that when we are scaling up, there are risks. Rest assured, the type of gain you are going to get with the innovative product, with a standard product, a normal businessman cannot find it. So there are two sides of it. Risk is there, but gain is also many-fold in comparison to other companies. So thank you very much, I believe, Swagatji. Thank you all. And if there is anything, any question, you may connect with us at ceo@bckic.in, or you may reach out to Swagatji or your innovation cell. Wherever possible, BCKIC will extend all its support towards the maturation of ideas towards the market. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. So I'm dropping. Thank you.